Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope, very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits. And indeed, I find myself in extremely good spirits indeed, excellent spirits, as it were, because we are joined by a very special guest. And this is Jeff, a very famous Jeff, film enthusiast, physical media collector extraordinaire, a really wonderful human being, a lover of movies, a lover of cinema, and known, I know, to many people through his great work online. His YouTube channel, Films at Home, is one of the best out there. And so I'm very happy to have from Films at Home the one, the only Jeff, the legend that is Jeff. So welcome. It's nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year to you. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I know we did one on my channel, which I think is actually dropping in a few hours. We're having this conversation. It's going to go live on my channel, so I'm excited to do some work on your channel and be the one being interviewed for once instead of the one giving the interview.
I want to say yes, for the benefit of people who maybe might not know yet. Yes, Jeff very kindly reached out to me the end of last year and very kindly invited me onto his channel and was such a very gracious host and asking lovely questions. And also there was a time for sort of give and take in terms of film recommendations, which is what I want to try to borrow from him. So I have an idea that I'm borrowing from him with his permission that we'll talk about in the latter half of this discussion. But
Yep.
before we get there, Jeff, I want to say, again, for the benefit of those, again, who might be meeting you for the first time, I know you have a really great and large audience and fan base, and so many people follow you and your work. But again, just in case, for those who might be meeting you for the first time, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and your channel?
Yeah. So my name is Jeff Rossio, and I've got the YouTube channel Films at Home, which I started just over 5 years ago. Late 2017, I started, and I've just been talking about physical media. My own collection started back in 2012, 2013 is when I finally sort of discovered Blu-ray and high definition and home theater, as I was pretty young and finally had some money to spend. And so I've been collecting since then, and I started the YouTube channel. I do physical media videos about different topics, news, lots of reviews on 4K discs and Blu-ray discs. Just try to cover everything in that world and promote, physical media and the greatness that is collecting movies, and also just have a love for movies. And so I will occasionally, and I think I'm going to do more of this in the future, just make videos where I talk about movies that I love or make lists for people, recommendations, and tie in physical media to that so you can purchase them. But I mean, we all love movies. That's why we're here in the first place. So yeah, I'm on YouTube at Films at Home. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm everywhere. It's Films at Home everywhere you go. So if you search that, you will find me. But yeah, we just hit 100,000 subscribers at the end of 2022, which was a big deal for me, but it was a big deal for the physical media community too. Like there really hadn't been a channel that had hit that mark yet. So that was always my goal, and it was super exciting to see. So I appreciate all the support, and hopefully yeah, you guys will come check it out if you haven't already.
You've got to check it out. This is amazing. Fantastic. The collection is intense. It's intense. You can get a sense, my dear friends, from just the back. It's amazing. Look at the background. It's absolutely amazing. And I just want to say that when you and I spoke last time, I had so much fun. We were talking about a lot of things like westerns and Sergio Leone and John Carpenter. Oh, gosh, without giving too much away, may I ask here, did you get a chance to see Once Upon a Time in the West?
So I bought it, right?
Yes.
And then two I think 2 days after I bought it, they announced a 4K release.
Are you
So
serious? So that's
yeah,
my
yeah.
fault. I'm so sorry. I'm so
No, no,
sorry.
no, it's okay. So what I ended up doing was I said, okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna watch this in 4K when it comes out. So I took the Blu-ray and I sold it, and I said I'm gonna wait and I'll watch that in 4K and have that great first experience. So I haven't seen it yet,
Okay.
but I did go out and buy it, and as is always the case when you buy a movie like that, 2 days later they announce a new version. So I uh I guess I was the one that made that happen by my bad luck buying, but it's okay because I'm happy to see it come to 4K.
No, I'm so sorry. That was my poor timing of recommending that film.
It's
I'm so sorry. I didn't
it's all
know that. Actually, I'm totally behind the times when it comes to keeping up with the recent 4K plan. So that's coming out on 4K. Is that official?
yeah, yeah, it got announced. God, I forget who's doing it. It might be Kino.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll double check. But yeah, it got announced like literally I was scrolling through Instagram a couple days later. I hadn't even opened it yet, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's okay because I'm happy it's coming to 4K." So,
Okay.
it's great.
It'll join a number of the other Sergio Leone titles that
Yeah.
have had that treatment. Also, well done. So you've got to let me know what you think of it when
Oh
it
yeah.
arrives.
I haven't read you told me not to read anything about it. I haven't read anything about it. I've not looked anything up, so I'm going in completely blind.
Oh, oh gosh, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. It's going to be so awesome. So, and so Jeff, can I ask you also just a very I guess in terms of cinema journey, could you tell us a little bit about your cinema journey and background? I guess I'm so curious to know, for example, in thinking back on your life and thinking back on your cinema loving life, could you give us some indications as to some of those landmark moments along your cinema journey? What were some of those early film memories that you have that you can attribute to being the reasons or some of the reasons why you are the film lover that you are today? So what were some of those films in your lifetime that you recall in your memory? Could you give us a few examples in your cinema
Yeah.
journey, my friend?
Yeah, so just for context, I just turned 30 a couple months ago. So we're talking I'm born in 1992. So that's where I'm coming up is early 90s, but really like mid to late 90s is where I'm growing up. So uh VHS days, of course, and my parents had a pretty decent sized VHS collection. Like we had a lot of discs, and this is back in the day too, where you'd put in a VHS and record a movie off of HBO. So we had a lot of those discs too. But some of the movies when I think back, and we had talked briefly about this on the episode I did with you on my channel, but watching Jaws on VHS on Cape Cod where it was filmed, that's like my first memory of watching a movie on this little, probably like 12-inch TV. Um, but down there on the Cape, that's when I watched a lot of movies in the summer, and they had the original King Kong 1933. I watched that one nonstop. I have that poster hanging up here in my room. That was a big movie for me. And that was just, even though it was so, I didn't know the difference. I didn't know it was 65 years old when I was watching it, but it just was so amazing the way that it was put together. So that one, Jaws, Jurassic Park was huge for me. I was big into dinosaurs, and I mean, Jurassic Park was just like, at the time, I'd never seen anything that looked like that. It was just incredible. So, those movies, and then a lot of the Spielberg stuff. I really came up on a lot of Spielberg. I watched a lot of E.T. I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind quite a bit. I liked that movie a lot. The Goonies, of course, Jaws. So that sort of movie is what got me started. It was always these sort of action adventure movies. And then, as the 90s progressed, you talk about Toy Story came out in what, 97.
Mm.
So that was obviously a huge movie. Anything those early Pixar days, I mean, they were just massive, massive movies for my generation. And then as I got older, I started to dive into some more serious stuff, and I remember going to my dad. I was probably like 14, and I was like, "All right, look, I'm gonna start watching some rated R movies here. So, what what do I watch? What do you have? What should I check out?" And he gave me some recommendations, and Training Day was one of them, and
Mhm.
that made me fall in love with Denzel because I just thought he was the most badass character in that movie, and I was like, I need to see everything he does. But he actually gave me a couple really interesting recommendations. Arlington Road was one,
Mm.
and The Game, David Fincher's movie. So I watched those and I was like, whoa, okay, there's way more to movies than Jurassic Park and the big blockbusters that I had been seeing because I'd never heard of those two. And they just kind of blew my mind. So I went from there and I started diving into the rest of David Fincher, and I watched stuff like Seven, and just really diving into like that thriller horror esque vibe. And then that's sort of where the love for horror movies came from AMC's Fear Fest that they run every year on TV here in the US. Pretty much the whole month of October, they run horror movies, and they're all the TV edits. So I was watching those at like 8, 9 years old. I'm watching Halloween. I'm watching Halloween 4, 5, and 6, all TV edits. So I'm fairly safe to watch as a 9 or 10-year-old. But I just fell in love with Halloween, specifically that franchise, because it was always playing on AMC. And so that's where my love for horror started, was back then. And then as I got older, I started to really dive into like some more serious horror movies and those thriller horrors and mystery movies, and that just sort of took off from there. And then when I got to college and got a decent job that made some half decent I don't know, I was probably making like $10 an hour, but I had money for the first time. I went out and bought a surround sound system, which just coincidentally was a very cheap system that used a Blu-ray player as the receiver. Like, it was sort of one of those cheap, like, all-in-one home theater in a box systems. And so I didn't go out to buy a Blu-ray player, but I ended up with one sort of by chance. And I started playing DVDs in it and hated the way they looked. So I went out and started buying Blu-rays, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's really cool. I love that. I love also that you were talking when you said around 14 years old, and you're talking about what were some recommendations that you asked. That was wonderful. That's
Yeah.
really cool. And that could I ask you, what were some of the, how should I put it? What were some of, say, the movie theater experiences that you remember for instance, you said you were born in the early 90s, so what does that mean?
Yep.
So that you didn't you were too young to go to Jurassic Park as a kid, is that right?
Yeah, I would have
So
seen that for the first time on VHS.
okay, so when you were getting a little bit, as a kid growing up, what were some of those movie theater going experiences that you recall?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first Harry Potter movie was massive
Oh,
for
yeah,
kids our age. I mean, that was just, I think, I can't remember if I had a birthday party or if my brother did. Somebody had a birthday party. We did it at the movie theater. We saw Harry Potter.
that's cool.
So I remember seeing that. I remember seeing all the Pixar movies, Toy Story, some of those later Disney movies. Tarzan was a big one. I think that
Mhm.
movie's so underrated, especially for the music in it. It's incredible. People forget that. But Men in Black was another big one. When that came out, I was in the movie theater for that. And then as I got older, there was a time when I was a freshman in high school, and I was playing basketball, and we had games on Friday nights at like 6 o'clock, and the game would end at 7:30, and then the whole team every Friday would go to a movie afterward. So for like a year, I was seeing a movie every Friday, and it
That's
was
cool.
some really bad stuff, some really good stuff. But this is like 2008, 2009. We'd see a lot of horror movies. So that was a lot of fun. And then I started going to film festivals actually with my uncle. There's a Boston Film Festival, and he invited us out one day, and that sort of opened up my world to like the indie um A24 type world that I had never really explored before. I started seeing stuff there at the festival every year that really expanded my knowledge and my pursuit of some other movies, even stuff that was at the festival I didn't get to see, I'd go find later and go watch. So that really opened up my mind a lot too.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And then, of course, I would assume, again, based off of your really excellent work on your channel and elsewhere, I'm also assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm also assuming that this is also physical media was also part of your journey or process, right? You'd mentioned earlier about you get that machine, getting early DVDs, but then you wanted to get into Blu-rays as well, and that started that journey, I'm assuming. So, uh, could I ask to what does physical media, therefore, what does physical media mean for you? Or perhaps to put it another way, uh, how does physical media and how do you see physical media figure into your own personal cinema journey? How important has it been for you? How much importance do you put stock into it, if at all? And like, could you give us a little bit of your insight into your perspective on the physical media aspect?
Yeah, so I mean, even going way back to when I was younger, right? It wasn't easy to access movies like you could now. And yeah, I'll talk about that in a sec, but we had VHS, we had DVDs. Like the only reason I was able to explore some of these movies was because my dad had bought them on DVD. You know, these were not movies you could even really find on like an HBO or a Showtime or you know, that was the way I explored was sort of I browsed, you know, he might have had 100 movies, you know, at the time seemed like a big collection. Now I look at mine and I go, wow, I'm way bigger than that. But it was good. There was 100 movies to browse. And then yeah, I mean, nowadays, like the thing is, the streaming services, right, where we talk so much, there is a lot of great access and there is a lot of content out there, but it's not easy to browse and find new stuff, especially older stuff. I mean, if you go to Netflix, they hit you with their top 10 and most of it is Netflix originals that they're pushing. If you go to Prime Video, it's the same thing. You know, even if you go to a great streaming service that I love like Shudder, which has so many great horror movies, if you're browsing through the homepage, they're going to push the Shudder originals in their series, which makes total sense, but it's not as easy to just explore something different. So the way that I've found a lot of movies is through physical media where, you know, I'll pay attention or I'll go into a Kino Lorber sale or I'll go to a Vinegar Syndrome sale or a Shout Factory sale and I browse through their selection that they're selling and that will give you way more options than trying to go through a streaming service and clicking through, you know, millions and millions of exclusives and all these movies that yeah, they're great, but they're sort of, you know, throwaway content. You know, Netflix gets it out there, it makes the top 10. 2 weeks later, nobody's talking about it. And then it's the new thing. So I go to these sales and I just read, you know, I click on a movie, I read the description, the cover title, the artwork looks interesting. You know, it's the same, it's really the same process as if you went back to a Blockbuster and you're browsing the shelves as you're browsing an online sale. I'd love to be able to go to a store more often and do that, but this is the reality of 2023. So, you know, you go through and you say, "Oh, you know what? That artwork looks kind of interesting." Click on it, read a quick description, who's in the movie, who directed it. Okay, you know, I'll take a chance on it based on what I know about the people involved. So that's been the biggest thing. Physical media just allows you to explore. And there's got to be hundreds, if not over 1,000 movies in my collection that you may not be able to find on a streaming service, or at least may not be able to find easily. You may need to sign up for some really, you know, niche streaming services, which can get, you know, expensive and almost tiresome to have to go through, you know, 15 different channels to find the movie, whereas I just pull it off the shelf. So it is a great way to explore and learn more about movies. And then you, of course, have special features and behind the scenes stuff. And I mean, that's how you really, if you're interested in the filmmaking process, I mean, you're not going to get that on a streaming service. You need to dive into a movie and really understand it in depth, and that's what physical media will give you.
Oh, that's really interesting. Before I forget, I should mention too. Yes, I can sympathize with the Blockbuster video experience,
Hmm.
and the you go into the store and it's this white place, right? The white walls and the orange or the yellow and blue and logo insignia, and the I think the outer walls would be for the new releases,
Yeah,
right? Starting in like A and going to Z, and then the middle part of the store would be like the regular releases, and they'd have
yeah,
the what is it, the metal detector or something,
yeah,
and at the register, right? And I
yeah.
would always be so nervous. I know I wouldn't be stealing anything, but maybe my, I bought, I did some shopping at another store, and maybe some tag would set up. I would always be nervous with that. So I'd always hold my breath. Oh, can I don't want to set it. Oh, I'd be okay. And then just they'd give it to you after you pass the metal detector there. So that, yes, those were the days, huh? Blockbuster. Yeah, those are the days.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you just, as much as streaming tries to replicate that, um, it just doesn't. It doesn't do it because everyone's pushing their own product. If we
mhm,
had truly like independent services that weren't creating originals, that were just curating things, that would be like, I guess the Criterion channel probably does a pretty good job of that because they don't have any exclusives. They're just
mhm.
going to curate collections for you. But a lot of these services don't. So you sort of have to, you got to go out and check out all these different retailers and go to websites and see what's available and just kind of browse online to curate your own collection. And that's sort of the new Blockbuster, unless you have a local video store, which I also do have, which is great, but it's it's still easier to go online.
Before we get into the second part of this, I'm also curious to ask you in terms of your physical media collection. Could you just give us a sense of how big it is
Yeah,
approximately?
at its peak, I had probably 3,500 discs, and that's all Blu-ray and 4K. Like I have a handful of DVDs, but I've pretty much upgraded everything. Um, in the last year, though, I've started to curate that down. It just is taking up too much space, and when you have that many movies, there are many that you're like, okay, I'm never gonna watch this again. Do I really need to own this? So I've started to curate down. I'm probably sitting at about 2,000 right now, and or 2,500. I'd really like it to be about 1,500 to 2,000 and try to keep it in that range, which is still massive, but that's sort of what I can handle in my room.
And how do you approach, for example, potential new purchases? Do you tend to focus on titles that you've seen already, or does it not matter? In other words, do you, when you do your shopping or when you make your selections or whatever the process is,
Mhm.
what is the breakdown in terms of what you've already seen versus anything that you have not yet seen?
I would say the majority of what I buy, I have not seen.
Okay.
Um, it's a lot of what I'm buying these days is sort of, I have so many, I pretty much have, if it's a mainstream movie, like it's somewhere in this collection. So a lot of what I'm buying is obscure movies, cult movies, horror movies, B movies, stuff that isn't going to be mainstream. And my dad will make fun of me and say, "Oh, you've never seen this movie, but you've seen, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes." And I'm like, "Well, that's that's just sort of my vibe sometimes. That's what I watch." So a lot of times I haven't seen them, and it'll be based on recommendations, or I watch, Rosemary's Baby and I love it. So I say, "Oh, let me find some more movies from this time period that focus on a similar subject because I really like that vibe." And I'll go out and buy 4 or 5 of them that I've never seen, but, show up on recommendation lists.
Oh, fantastic. I love Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Now I have the theme song in my head now. Thank you. No, that's fine. I'm very happy with that. So thank you so much. I love that. And so and I must ask you then also, which is what are some of those titles that you are very, how should I put it? What are some of the jewels of your collection? What are some titles or some items that you are particularly happy to have for whatever reason, whether it be for the release itself or the rarity or maybe the content or quality of the film? What are some examples of some items in your collection that you're particularly proud of or happy to have?
Yeah, so by doing YouTube and by having the channel, I've had some like unique opportunities where I've been able to connect with filmmakers or different, press groups, and they send some cool stuff every now and then. So a couple of the crown jewels are like signed movies, some of which I've acquired myself. Like I have a signed Halloween 35th anniversary Blu-ray that John Carpenter signed. But I also have a copy of Us that Jordan Peele signed. I have M. Night Shyamalan's new movie that he signed, Old. There's been some really cool, unique items like that that I love and put on display. I have a signed copy of The Room by Tommy Wiseau. So, stuff like that makes me happy. I've got a sealed original VHS of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I sort of treasure and love because I love that movie. And then other stuff, I have a Predator Blu-ray set with all the Predator movies prior to Prey. It doesn't include Prey, but it had all the Predator movies, and it's a Predator bust that has a removable mask and all this really high quality. And I actually bought it from Amazon Japan. It was it was not available in the US. I think it was available in like you could get it from France, Japan, a couple other European countries, and I remember this was way back in the day. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago when I started collecting, but I paid a pretty penny to get that shipped over here. It cost a lot on its own, and then to get it shipped from, Japan to the US cost a bit more. So, I keep that one on display. I love that set. I think it's one of the most unique physical media, releases that's ever come out. And then I do just I treasure my Vinegar Syndrome special edition box sets and stuff from Arrow Video special editions, things like The Hills Have Eyes, my new Vinegar Syndrome Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 or the Amityville Horror. I love that stuff. Whenever somebody can give a really high quality release of a movie I love, I mean that stuff's great. So I try to keep all that on display. There's my shelves, and then there's sort of on the top of the shelves I have my display items that I probably would put at the top of my list.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. And just a quick note too. I also am a big fan. I'm a big fan of the number of the films that you've already mentioned, and we've talked about it in our previous discussion. But I have to say, just John Carpenter, when you mentioned that, and when we were talking about it, that just warmed my heart to no end. I'm a
Yeah,
huge, huge fan of John Carpenter's works, but I have never had the great fortune to have been able to get anything signed or autographed. So that's so cool. That
yeah.
is
That's
really, really cool indeed. Can I say what are some of your favorite John Carpenter films?
I mean
Mention
Halloween.
Halloween, yes. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry, please.
Halloween's the number one. I love The Thing. I love Big Trouble in Little China. That one just is timeless. Anything he did with Kurt Russell, I'll
Yeah,
watch. I'll watch Escape from LA. Like I don't, is it as good as Escape from New York? No, but I'll still watch it because it's a lot of fun. Um, and In the Mouth of Madness is one that I always talk about. I really do like that, and I think it's so underrated. And I feel like if that movie came out today and it was released by an A24 and they put together a really good marketing campaign and a great trailer for it, I feel like it could have had the status of a movie like The Witch or a Hereditary or, some of these movies that have been huge successes for them because it has that vibe. It was almost ahead of its time
yeah.
in that way. It would fit really nicely into an A24 catalog in 2023.
That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's a oh, Sutter Kane. I love that name, Sutter Kane. But that's really I never thought of it that way before. Oh, that's really fascinating. Huh.
Yeah.
That's really
I,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, I just think for the time period, it's just not what people expected. But that movie, it hits a lot of the marks in the stuff that people call like elevated horror now. But
Yeah.
just I think it would fit in really nicely. People should revisit that if you've been enjoying some of the recent horror movies.
So
Agreed.
now what I'd like to do is I'd like to then enter into this next part of the conversation, which is what you and I had talked about a little bit briefly before. Actually, we talked about it a little bit, or quite a lot, in fact, during our previous conversation, which was, I thought, such a great idea, and it was your idea, so it's not mine. And but you very kindly given me your permission to borrow it for today and exclusively for you, my dear friend, which is this. Last time when we spoke, you had this great idea, which I think you do with your other guests, which is you give a list of titles and you give these titles to your guest, and then your guest then provides something like, if you liked this film, then I recommend this other film, and that type of linkage or that type of other way to connect with other works of art. So I thought that was a really great idea. You were so kind to give me the opportunity to speak about some titles I thought for. So for instance, I think if I recall, we had spoken about let's say Halloween, and then
Mhm.
you gave me the opportunity to say, well, if you liked Halloween, then I recommend this movie, or if you liked, what was it, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, then I
Yeah.
recommend that movie. So that was a really lovely idea, Jeff, and I thought that's such a great way to not only break the ice, but also to I get to know someone. And I really believe that one way to really get to know someone is to hear about what that person's movie tastes are. You know, and there's no bad choice. Every choice is a great choice. So, what I'd like to do today, and what we discussed is, I'd like now to ask you a similar line of questions, which is I have a number of titles that I'd like to show to you. And again, we have, again, for the benefit of giving you the opportunity to think about the answers, um, I'm going to show a title and I would like to ask you the same thing. Well, if you like this title, then I recommend such and such a title, or I recommend that film. So I
Sure.
have a list of titles that we've discussed, but I don't know what your choices are going to be. These are titles that, for the most part, fall pretty much in the 1970s. There's some titles in the 80s, but more or less 70s, early 80s. And what we discussed too was, I, while I have maybe experience with watching films from that particular era, I am very limited, I admit, in terms of watching quote unquote more recent releases or, say, films from, say, the last 10 years or so. And you, I think, have the benefit of seeing not just these films from this era that I'm about to talk about, but also recent releases. And you mentioned the great wealth of the library that you curate and you own. So what we thought would be interesting was I'll present these titles, and then you could provide a quote unquote recent release, or and I use quotes, air quotes, because I want you to interpret that in the way that you feel. So the
Mhm.
floor is yours. And so what I'd like to do therefore is I'd like to now go in no particular order, but again, a film, for example, there is this film, which is The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, and it's again a classic, iconic horror film. Oh, one other thing too. These are more or less going to be horror films or science fiction films, because I think that's a genre that it's very fun to talk about, and also
Yeah.
you and I think, have a lot of overlap in terms of interests that we discussed before. So this is going to be a lot of fun for me and a great learning experience for me. To start off, let's go with The Exorcist. So I've seen this so many times. I know you have, but if we have The Exorcist. So if you like The Exorcist, then what would be some other titles that you could recommend to people who say like The Exorcist? The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. So I do want to qualify too, like you said, I'm going to be doing mostly modern stuff. So I tried to keep all my choices basically post 2005, 2006 ish. So I know there's lots of movies in the 80s, 90s that The Exorcist I could have picked. So don't yell at me for leaving them out. I'm just picking modern ones for the purpose of this. So um one that I went to immediately, and because I see The Exorcist, it was very scary at the time, and now when you watch it, it's a little bit campy almost. It's kind of it's got a it, there's parts of it that look like Sam Raimi type stuff. So I said Drag Me to Hell would be a really good one if you like The Exorcist, because it is um it's a little campier. It's not, but it has a lot of great moments in it. It has some great jump scares. It's a fairly scary movie, but it also has some of those like gross out moments that The Exorcist has as well. And I think it's a really that movie. It came out in I don't 2009 maybe. It's sort of an older movie. It's definitely a throwback to an earlier day of movie, so it doesn't feel like it was modern. So that's a great choice. I would definitely recommend that. If you want to go strictly like exorcism type stuff, there's a couple of movies that actually sort of deal with the aftermath of exorcisms as well, and they get into court cases, which is the Conjuring 3 that just came out sort of deals with this famous exorcism case and then dives into actually some of the a court case built around this person's defense that he was possessed by a demon. So they're trying to actually put that through in court. And then the exorcism of Emily Rose does a similar thing where there's some great moments in the beginning, but then it sort of dives into like the aftermath. So if you're interested in that at all, those are good choices. And then I picked The Autopsy of Jane Doe as well, because I think that's just it's a creepy movie that it fits within that same vibe as The Exorcist. It's not exactly the same type of story. It's not necessarily an exorcism story, but it has a very similar vibe. And I think that movie will surprise a lot of people.
This is so cool. So I have not seen The Conjuring 3. I have not seen what's The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't. Oh, this is so cool. So this is you've given me not one, but you've given me a whole bunch. This is fantastic. Absolutely. And also, yes, a note on Drag Me to Hell. I thought that's a great. I love how you describe it. It has this type of a modern take, but it's also very much part of the kind of the I mean, Sam Raimi has a history with this type
Yeah.
of film, as you know. So, and it's a really great calling back to the past, as well as the staking a claim in sort of the modern era in that great Sam Raimi way. So, oh, well done. So that's your recommendations based off of The Exorcist. So that's one area. So now let's go through the list here. And again,
Let's
you
do
can
it.
take this for wherever you go. I'm going to go kind of randomly here. So I suppose, yes, we spoke a little bit about it. I have to mention it, which is here is my VHS tape of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So if you like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for people who like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what are some films that you can recommend to those people? Again, from the quote unquote modern era that you're speaking of.
Yeah. First of all, I love that VHS. That is super cool. That's awesome. But yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has inspired so many movies. But modern stuff, I mean, if you want to dive into Rob Zombie's catalog a bit, House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, I'd recommend both of those. They're very much in that same vein as sort of, it's that feeling of you're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's who knows what's out there, and you're sort of isolated a bit, and there's some really crazy people that you don't exactly know where they're going to turn next or what's going to happen. So that's sort of the whole thing, the isolation, and then just the kind of craziness. And there's some definite gore there, which actually there isn't too much of in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They don't actually show a whole lot. um but those are good picks. The Wrong Turn series does that as well. Those are, there's like 12 Wrong Turn movies, but there are a few good ones in the franchise that play on Texas Chainsaw. But a couple of really recent ones that I liked. This just came out last year, and it was Ty West's movie X. That is, there are almost scenes in that he pulled straight from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There are definitely, it's definitely heavily inspired by that, and it has its own twist on sort of the group of friends who go out to the country and stay in the weird house, or dealing with these kind of strange people out there. I don't want to give too much away, but it's heavily inspired by Texas Chainsaw and in a lot of other movies from that time period. I mean, there's the famous shot in Texas Chainsaw where and I forget the character's name, but the girl's walking into the house and it's sort of shot from underneath her. She's got the red shorts on, and I mean they almost copy that scene, shot by shot in this movie. So X is really good. And then one that I think is also plays to like isolation and sort of the creepiness of the country is The Dark and the Wicked. That's a movie that came out in I think 2020. It plays on some of the same themes. It's not necessarily like a slasher movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I mean it takes place on a farm in Texas. There's a lot of scary, very scary moments in it. It's a bit of a slow burn, but I really enjoyed that. I think it was a Shudder exclusive movie, but then the great thing about Shudder is they release most of their stuff on Blu-ray, and it does have a pretty good Blu-ray release.
Okay, can you say that title again? The Dark. I'm sorry. It
Yeah,
was
the Dark and the Wicked.
The Dark and the Wicked. Thank you so much. So this is, I haven't seen this one either. So oh, this is awesome. And yeah, I've heard a lot about X,
Yeah,
but I haven't seen it yet. So oh
X is very good, and then the Pearl, the movie he followed it
yeah,
up with, which is like a prequel, is um I wouldn't say it's as good, but has great performances from Mia Goth. She's
I heard of that too.
excellent in
Yeah.
it.
I
Yeah.
heard that too. Yes, and I've seen that also mentioned in a number of favorites lists from the year as well.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's awesome. All right. I'm just oh my gosh, my wallet. Oh no, oh my gosh, this is gonna do
This is how I felt after talking to you too. I was like, oh, here it goes. Here's my credit card bill
that's
next month.
okay. That's okay. Just yeah, that's okay. Not a problem. That's the way things go in terms of the physical media. Yeah, c'est la vie, c'est la vie. That's fine. That's the fun of this. So, oh, fantastic. Okay, so let's see. Up next. All right, let's take a slightly different turn here. And so I have, for example, let's see this one, which is my box here of the Alien. There we go. I'll take it. I'll just remove this. So the Alien anthology, right? For the sort of the Blu-ray from some years back. And so I pulled this
Mhm.
out to reference specifically Alien, the film Alien. And so this is another classic, iconic one. I love this film so much. It scared me to no end when I was a kid watching on VHS back in the day. That and Aliens as well. But let's speak about Alien. So, so for people who like Alien, like myself, what are some recommendations that you can make, my dear friend?
Yeah. So um to kick things off, this might be controversial to some people, but I actually really liked this movie, and it was Prometheus, which is directly in the Alien universe. I saw that in theater. First of all, it's a beautiful movie. The way they shot it. It has its issues and it has some plot holes and stuff, but the movie is one of the better sequels since, I think it may be the best since Aliens, that at least ties into that universe. And it doesn't tell the exact same story, but it tells a very interesting story. And it's, I would pick that over Alien Covenant or any of the other ones that have come out recently. I really like that one. Um, Another one is Annihilation, which is Alex Garland's movie. I mean, just plays on that same theme of, you know, group of people entering the unknown, and what's going to happen when they get there. And it has some really great creature moments, much like Alien does, and also doesn't necessarily show the monster all the time, or show the stuff that's what I like about Alien, is they sort of hide the alien a bit. That doesn't come right out. It has that almost Jaws feel where it gets revealed towards the end, but you're sort of dealing with these creatures you don't understand. You don't always get a good look at, which is fun. So Annihilation's a good one. And then I also picked Under the Skin because that's a Scarlett Johansson's in that one, and that is a severely underrated, very creepy alien movie, sci-fi thriller, I guess. But I mean, it's as much a horror movie as anything else. So that plays on a lot of the same themes as Alien, but that's a recent no, I shouldn't even. It's almost 10 years old at this point, but it is an A24 movie that's pretty widely available on Blu-ray as well as the other two. So they shouldn't hurt your wallet too bad. Any of those.
Fantastic. This is fantastic. Can I, as a kind of sideline here, you mentioned this and the other works, which are great recommendations. Do you have any preference as to, say, horror or sci-fi films that maybe don't necessarily show a lot or leave a lot to the imagination, or does it depend on the work? I mean,
Um, yeah, it sort of depends. I could go for both. I don't mind a movie that straight up, in the first 5 minutes, gives me the creature, the monster, and that creature just, destroys people throughout the movie, and you get a really good look. There's
yeah,
if you have a good creature design and you're going to use it, that's great. But there is also a lot to be said for like that slow burn of, the creatures in the shadows. You get a quick glimpse, you see the fin, you see the outline of it, but you don't, necessarily get a full look at what we're dealing with. I mean, that's the Jaws effect that I think works so well. It depends on the movie because you have to sort of craft the movie in a different way if you're going to do that.
course, sure. Yeah, well said. Excellently said, my friend. So, and oh, this is great. Thank you so much for that. And yes, I admit that maybe for me, I think Prometheus is one that I admit I have to. It was a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around it in a manner of speaking, but I will give it another go. I will definitely give it another go. That's for sure. And you're
Yeah,
right. There are concepts in it that are very fascinating, and it does leave room for mystery. And it's so beautiful as well. I mean, there's the shot at the very beginning. It's just the ship gliding across the
yeah,
stars, right? Right. You know what I mean? That the trail, right? And
right.
it's the perfect shot. It's like it's and Ridley Scott. You can't. I mean, you ask Ridley Scott to make a film like that, he's going to give you this sort of spectacle in this great way. So, oh, it's wonderful, my dear friend. Thank you so much for that. This is great. You want to keep going?
Yeah, let's
This is
do it.
fantastic. All right, so we have a number of others. So let's see. Again, I'm kind of going here randomly, but okay. Let us go to this one, which is this is one which I have spoken of. Well, I haven't spoken of this directly on my channel that I want to, and it's from a filmmaker who is Stanley Kubrick, and this is from the early '80s, which is
Mhm.
The Shining. And so I know that you've seen this film many a time. So, Jeff, for those who are into The Shining, who like this film, what are some recommendations that you can give to those people, myself included?
Yeah. So honestly, this was the one that I think I struggled with the most because it is so unique. And I was trying to think of like what ties into what the similar themes. The Shining is also very much like isolation and sort of people, the madness of isolation, but it also has these ghost supernatural elements. And so I was really there's not much like it, but I have a couple picks. I mean, obviously, if you've seen The Shining and you like it, you need to see Doctor Sleep, which was really, really well. Mike Flanagan did it, and it's really well done. Like I don't know that anybody could have done that better. And that's a really great companion piece to The Shining. And in Room 237, which is the documentary about The Shining. If you like The Shining and you have not seen that, you need to see it. Um, but a couple of movies I picked which sort of deal with the isolation and this like descent into madness. I chose The Machinist with Christian Bale because there's some similar themes there to sort of being isolated, slowly losing your mind, slowly sort of hallucinating and seeing things that aren't there, and just the craziness of that. I mean, his performance is, you know, on par with Jack Nicholson as far as the total descent into just madness. Um, so I chose that, and then I chose Ex Machina as well for sort of similar themes. Isolation again, but you sort of have this. You have the guy who wins a prize goes stay at the house of this very famous, inventor, technologist who is in complete isolation. And instead of ghosts and supernatural, we sort of have these robots and these AIs, and it's a very like modern take on some of the elements from The Shining. So it was really tough. It's such a unique movie. It's tough, but if you like it, those two sort of have similar themes to them.
Oh, this is so awesome. I love this. I really love this for so many reasons. So I love how you describe this work as unique, and you had this you were this was a kind of challenge for you in terms of
It
figuring out what
was.
yeah, oh, this is wow, that's really fascinating. And I must say too that I only recently caught up with Doctor Sleep, and I was so surprised with how taken I was with it. I'll be
Hmm.
honest, I wasn't necessarily expecting I didn't know too much about it going into it.
Yeah,
I know a little bit about it. I knew about what the setup was, but I never read the novel, Doctor Sleep, so I didn't know what the underlying source. I really should have, I suppose, but I didn't I
it's a
have
good
the
book.
opportunity.
I've read the book. It's a good book too.
Is it? Is so
Yeah.
and what I found is that it has this again, I don't want to get into too many details, but it really occupies this kind of unique space of being because as you know, The Shining as a novel and as a film, there is a lot of history there,
Yeah.
right? And so the film, the Doctor Sleep does this interesting thing of somehow or another balancing between those two worlds, which aren't always in sync, let's put it
Yeah.
that way. And
Right.
it does it really well. And so again, I should I mean, I've read The Shining, the novel, but I haven't read Doctor Sleep, so I really should get to that. I'm totally behind with that sort of thing, but I caught up with the film, and it was a really I had a great time with that. And then also, yes, I'm the machinist. I want to just and Ex Machina. I'm so Ex Machina. It has Kubrick vibes to it, but I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily associate it with the Shining per se until you mentioned it. So this is so cool for me. It's like I'm learning the new stuff. Oh, this is great. And The Machinist. It reminds me too of how you mentioned the physicality of the performance there, right? The Christian Bale performance, and again, it of course, it's like why didn't I think of this before? But you're right, I didn't, but then you mention it now, and I think yes, you're absolutely the physicality. And the physicality of that performance is much like the physicality of the Jack Nicholson performance here. And I never thought of this as a physicality type of performance, but it is, right? He
Yeah.
really gets into it. His body is, and the walk and everything, and the whole thing with the movements and the like. And you're
Right.
absolutely right. This is a physical performance, and The Machinist is also a physical, but it's tied into a lot of the emotional and psychological. Oh, that's brilliant! Absolutely brilliant. I never thought of that connection, but oh, brilliant. Well done. That's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, you said you struggled with that. That doesn't sound like us. That sounds like that's genius. Great job.
Oh, I
Oh,
appreciate it. Yeah, that one was tough. It's just such a unique movie that.
do you by let me get to the next one, but before I go, do you like Stephen King as well?
Oh yeah, I'm a big Stephen King. All that he writes, all those stuff takes place in New England and all these towns that I live around and have been to. So I have a good connection to Stephen King. He's very big around these parts anyway. I mean, he's big everywhere, but you go to a bookstore around here, it's like if Stephen King stuff is everywhere. It's in the thrift stores, it's everywhere. Everybody has Stephen King stuff.
What are some of those Stephen King stories that you particularly enjoy?
um
For example,
yeah, I liked his new book, The Outsider. Well, it was fairly new. It's a couple years old. They actually did an HBO series on it, I think, with Jason Bateman. But that was really interesting. I thought that was one of his better ones recently. Um, I like The Dome. The TV series didn't really do it much justice, but The Dome is really cool. I mean, and then go back to, any of the classics, the Carries, Christine. Cujo's a really fun one. I love that one. And then that that's talk about a book that's very different from the movie. They couldn't put some of that stuff
Yeah,
stuff in a
yeah, yeah.
movie,
I know what you're talking
but
about.
still
Yeah,
very
yeah,
very good. I mean, I've read so much of his stuff that it's even his newer stuff I really really enjoyed. But Doctor Sleep is really well done because it's hard to, I don't know how he did it. It's really hard to write a sequel to something, 20, 30 years after you've written the original, and he kind of nails it. And then they nailed it in the movie too. So
yeah. Oh,
definitely recommend it.
I should read that book. That you mentioned, is it what the dome is that the same as, what was it, Under the Dome, or is that a
Sorry,
different
that's what
thing?
it is. Yeah, Under the Dome.
Oh,
I
it's the same.
quoted.
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I thought that was a very interesting story as well. So I haven't
The
read all
book.
of Stephen King's books, but yeah, very fast. That was an interesting one. Yeah. And I saw
Yeah,
I saw, yeah, the adaptation as well. So uh and I've only recently caught up with, I guess maybe not during the release, but a little bit afterwards. I caught up with the recent and It Chapter 2. And I again, that's another one where I was pleasantly I was very pleased with it.
yeah,
I thought they were really, really very scary.
yeah,
uh like the bit with the, I don't want to get, and he's like, "Mm."
yeah,
Oh, it just freaked me out. Oh my goodness, it's so scary.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And I saw the Tim Curry TV version back in, what was it, 1990 or so, and I saw that
Yeah.
on TV. So that's the one I always grew up with. But yeah, that new version was great. But oh, thank you. So Stephen King, there's another one. Let's see. So that was The Shining. So let's go on. You want some more? You feel up for some more? I'm
I
game if you are.
I say
Okay,
yeah, let's do them
good.
all. I'm
Let's
I'm
do it.
loving it.
All right, here we go. So this is one that is one that we have. Well, I guess we haven't mentioned this one yet. This is a work which is also from the early 80s, and this is Videodrome. David Cronenberg's Videodrome, another very unique
Yeah.
experience to say the least. So, my dear
Yeah.
friend, what would you recommend for anyone who likes Videodrome? What would you recommend to those people? If you like Videodrome, you will like this, and myself included. So, what are some of your recommendations, my friend?
Yeah, so when I thought this one was also tough because the way it's obviously super unique. So I sort of went with, I was like, okay, what kind of movies, what do they play with like technology and like mass media and how that affects, people. And some of them, it's funny because not all of them are really like horror movies, but I don't know if you've seen, this is a fairly recent movie too called Sorry to Bother You, which goes kind of wacky in the way Videodrome does. It tackles like modern media, and it has a couple of different twists, and you never really know, and it's very stylistic and interesting, and it has some loose ties to Videodrome and that sort of theme. I really, that movie surprised me more than any other because you think it's going one way and then it takes a totally left turn and then it takes a right turn and then it ends and you're like, whoa. So that one was really cool. I also like Possessor, which is Brandon Cronenberg's movie. That was really good. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't expect much, but that was really interesting and really creepy and had some awesome sci-fi themes to it that definitely play into the Videodrome kind of style a little bit more. He's also got some other great stuff out there. Brandon, he's gonna make an argument that he's getting close to being as good as his dad was. He's got a really good catalog going so far. His dad's a legend, but he's following in those footsteps pretty well. Um, and then the last one I picked is a movie called Censor, and it's from 2021. It's fairly recent. I don't know that a lot of people know about it. It was a really under the radar movie, but it's actually set in 1985, and it follows this woman who is she works for the British Board of Film in the 80s when they're dealing with all the video nasties. And so it definitely plays to like media and the way media was affecting people. But she's sort of the basic without giving away too much because I don't want to give away too much. But she basically rates a movie, approves it as a censor, and then turns out that there was an actual killing in that film that she didn't know it was real. She had rated it, approved it, and then things kind of start to go crazy from there in the aftermath of that. So it's really really interesting, and it plays with the video nasties, and it's in the 80s, and it's got VHS tapes and that type of technology, but it also speaks to like the media and film ratings and film classifications and the exploitation films of that time. And it's it's a it's not an easy watch. I would say not for the not for those who are looking for, say, a fun time. It's a hard watch. It's got some really tough elements in it, but I really liked it. I thought it was really well done.
So the title is censor, as in censorship, or
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Okay, so CE. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, oh
Yeah, and
my gosh. Okay.
I believe it's a vinegar syndrome put it.
Okay.
Somebody put it out. It's an MGM film, but it's out on Blu-ray, I think, from Vinegar Syndrome.
Okay. To check that out. Oh, that's oh, I didn't know this film. And the first one, Sorry to Bother You. So I don't know those two. I know the second film, but I don't know the first and the third films that you mentioned so at all. So,
Yeah.
oh, you have me so intrigued here. Oh gosh. Gosh. I've got to do some internet shopping after this conversation. Oh, this is awesome. By the way, when before we get to the next film, what are you mentioned that you are a fan of David Cronenberg's works? What are some other David Cronenberg films that you really like, for
Oh
example?
boy. I mean, I
Or should
like
I not ask? I don't know. Is that going to open up? Well, please go ahead. You can say what you want. Yeah, this is
no, I mean,
fantastic.
I like Scanners, of course. I like some of his more, like A History of Violence, I think is really good. And I don't think people associate that with him that often, but that's a really good one that I
Yeah.
enjoy. I mean, The Fly, of course. I really liked Crimes of the Future. That's his new movie. I thought that was super interesting. It was nice to see him make a return to sort of, it's almost come like full circle. Like they used to make those types of movies in the 80s and they sort of fell out of style, and now they're sort of back. There's a lot of these really like weird body horror movies. So he fit really nicely into that with the new one.
Hmm.
But yeah, Videodrome is solid. It's probably at the top of my list. It was one of the first Criterions I ever bought was Videodrome. So I have sort of a close tie to that movie. It was like before I probably even knew what the Criterion Collection was. I just knew that was the only place to buy that Blu-ray. So like that's what I got, and I loved the cover art and everything. It just sucked me in.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I do love some good body horror, and there's actually another movie. If you haven't seen them, this isn't related to any of the ones we talked about, but the movie Men, which is the next movie by Alex Garland. We mentioned Ex Machina and Annihilation, but his recent movie Men has some has some crazy body horror. It's a slow burn, and it sort of all happens in the last third of the movie, but it's unlike anything I've seen on the screen. So if you like body horror and some really interesting practical special effects, check that one out.
Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, you've get. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do here? This is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. This is exactly what I needed. This is great. So, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. And by the way, I too am a huge fan of the recent film Crimes of the Future. I think that is a phenomenal piece of work.
Yeah.
And you say it comes full circle. And I love how you say that. Yes. And I also find it does in a way that also ups the ante in terms of what we've seen from Cronenberg's
Yeah.
filmography. There's some stuff that we've seen that's very similar in terms of certain treatment of things, but he takes it in a way that I find quite radical in
Hmm.
the Cronenberg, say, aesthetic universe, and I find it to be almost in a way like forging a totally. There's a lot of similarities, but it's also forging a whole new chapter
Yeah.
It's going in a completely different direction, which is again, it blew my mind. And so I'm so happy that you mentioned that film.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
so,
really
and
good.
that's going to come out. It came out on a Blu-ray, and I think they're going to come out maybe next month or so with the 4K release, I think.
That's what
So
I've heard. Yeah.
I have
I
my eye
have the
on that.
Blu-ray,
Yeah,
but
me too. Yeah.
yeah.
So I have to keep my eye out on that. And by the way, they just released Spider, the David Cronenberg film Spider on Blu-ray. I think the end of last year or sometime. So I think I just got a notification saying the one that I ordered is going to arrive in the mail. Should be today, so but it hasn't
Oh,
arrived
good.
yet, so can't wait for that. So okay, oh fantastic! This is gosh, this is again, my mind is blown, Jeff. So this is wonderful. So you've given me so much to think about, and again, my wallet won't be happy. But what the heck? What the heck? You only live once, so and this is what it's all about: physical media and cinema. This is what we love. So you're on a roll as always, as always. So this is fantastic. I am learning a bunch. I am learning a lot
Good.
here. You are my teacher today. And so thank you so much for this. So let's continue on, shall we? So
Yeah.
again, with another classic. This is one of my favorites, and we spoke about this before, but I wonder what you're going to say about this one, which is Suspiria, the Dario Argento film Suspiria. So I'm very curious about what you're going to say about this one. So what do you recommend, my dear friend Jeff, for anyone who loves this film, the Argento work Suspiria? What do you recommend, my dear friend?
Yeah, so I think right off the bat, we have to mention the new Suspiria movie,
Yep.
which if you enjoy the older version, which I do very much, the new one, it's a different take. It's a little bit, I would say, sort of like Crimes of the Future with Cronenberg and coming. It's 40 years newer, so there's a lot of crazy stuff they can do that they couldn't necessarily do, 40 years ago. It's that's a pretty wild ride, that one. But a lot of the same themes. Um of course, I think a lot of people associate this one, but I would have to say Black Swan is a must see for Suspiria fans. That is heavily has to be heavily inspired, but it has its own uniqueness to it. It's not, a rip off or anything of Suspiria just because they're both, ballet movies. It's I saw that one in the theaters, and that one sticks with me. Black Swan. That has some moments that will stick with you. And then the other one I picked really because it sort of plays into this is maybe the closest one to Suspiria I've seen recently, but it's Hereditary, and I think um there's that whole sort of like something's happening behind the scenes that our main character is not fully aware of, but there is this cult behind the scenes that is sort of putting things in motion, and you're just sort of part of the plan and you don't know it. And obviously the ending is, they're both sort of slow burns and then they sort of ramp up at the end. So that, I don't know if a lot of people associate that with Suspiria, but that was one that I definitely thought was in the same vein. And then to a lesser degree, but still sort of close. This one's more weird, but the killing of a sacred deer, I like that one. It's again sort of this movie where like your main character is, this is the theme of going back to, sort of like not in full control, but there's stuff happening behind the scenes that you're not, there's this just creepiness, there's this weirdness that you can feel, but you're not really sure what it is. And then at the end of the movie they kind of reveal it, and there's, some crazy scene at the end that ties it all together, and you realize what's been happening this whole time, and how your main character was just a pawn in the whole scheme. So
This is this is so great because well, for so many reasons. But for example, I have to say that so I recently caught up with Killing of a Sacred Deer and Hereditary
Hmm.
fairly recently. So, but later than most. So, in particular, Hereditary. And I was I when I was watching it, I was just like
Yeah,
got kind of it was
yeah,
quite a memorable experience, I must say. But I must say that and not until now, I had never really thought about it in sort of a spiritual connection, any of those works in a spiritual connection with Suspiria, until you've said it just now. And the more I think about it, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Huh.
It's not the Suspiria is another one that I struggle with a little bit because it's like The Shining. It is a very, very unique
Yeah.
movie. So, I'm sort of pulling threads from it and trying to tie that to other movies, but there are some elements of those too. Hereditary more so, I think, that really do tie back into that sort of style of film.
No, those are great choices. I love this. This is so great because again, uh, it's just like with for example, like The Machinist and The Shining. I didn't think about that until you'd mentioned it, and now you mention it. You're absolutely spot on with that. I love that. And again, it's kind of not the it's the connections are there, but it's also one that you think, oh, you're actually, yeah. It has that type of I have that reaction to. That's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And yes, too, I must say that I had a similar reaction in terms of watching Black Swan. It was a very unforgettable experience,
Yeah,
yeah, in certain ways, right? And I don't want to mention it anymore for the benefit of those who haven't seen it yet. But that also has some Suspiria vibes, as does the Guadagnino film
yeah,
Suspiria. But you say, I think, very, very, very well about how it has certain similarities and differences. And I love that that sense. You mentioned also too another a great tie-in to Crimes of the Future and the Suspiria, which I'd never even thought about. But oh, that's another great link that you make, my dear friend. Huh? Huh? Like you're tying all this stuff. I this is the thing, making these connections. This is one of the great joys I have of cinema, and you're doing these connections I'd never thought of before. So well done, my dear friend. By the way, when before we get to the next one, are there any other Argento films that are on your radar? Any ones that you particularly enjoy?
um, yeah. I mean, there's lots that I like his. Oh my God, what Dracula? He did a version of.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
Um,
he did Dracula. Yes, with
yeah,
Rutger Hauer.
which I really enjoy. I mean, um, Two Evil Eyes was fun.
Yes.
Um, I like that. It's a Blue Underground release. I mean, all the ones that have come out from Arrow, the Cat of Nine Tails, was very fun. I liked that. Deep Red is very cool. I like a lot of his earlier stuff. Um, but Phenomena too.
Yeah.
Um, but so I think Suspiria is still my favorite. I go back to that one as my favorite. I really in the 4K release of it. I mean, unbelievable if you haven't seen it. I mean, it looks like it was shot
Yeah.
yesterday. It's just a beautiful movie. So that's always my go-to.
That's a great go-to to have. I
Yeah.
still contend it to be one of the great Italian cinematic works, horror film or
Oh yeah.
otherwise. It's one of the great Italian cinematic works. I think it's one of those films where, again, I don't want to go into too much detail for the benefit of those who have not yet seen the great film that is Suspiria, but it has probably one of the greatest, say, opening. I don't know, greatest openings of cinema ever.
Mm.
If that's not going to grab you, I don't know
Yeah.
what will. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's if that's not going to get you, just I don't know what to tell you. That every time I see, I'm just and like I'm thinking to myself, with the rain and all the water and the music and the colors and flies. I'm thinking, oh, doesn't anyone have an umbrella in this world of Suspiria? But that's just the beginning, and you're in
Yep.
for a one heck of a ride indeed. And so, yes, what a great film that is. And so, great picks, great connections. Again, you're making connections that are just are fantastic, my dear friend. So, all right. So, you want to continue it? We have a few more left,
Yeah,
and so
let's
let
do
me
it.
go to another one, which is considered a great iconic film. I'm going to pull out the laser disc here, which is of this film, which is, can you see it? Ta-da!
Yep.
This is Blade Runner,
Blade Runner.
and so there, Blade Runner is, I think, uh, it needs very little introduction. It is a film that is, I think, one of the great. It is one of the most important films for me, and I know for a lot of other people. So, but for those who like Blade Runner, and I know there are many, what can you recommend, my dear friend, for anyone who is into this great film that is Blade Runner?
Yeah, so I mean, I 100% have to recommend the sequel.
Hmm.
Really a beautiful movie. That
Yeah.
that I saw that in like an IMAX theater, and I was just like, wow, like they don't make them like this anymore. The just not as good as the original, I'd say, different, but just really, really fun to watch. And one of the better 4K discs, if you've ever bought it, that exists. So that one, I mentioned Ex Machina before, but that definitely has a lot of tie-ins with Blade Runner, and it was, I think, heavily inspired by Blade Runner. So definitely have to check that out. Um, I have Children of Men though. I think Children of Men is one that I would tie back to this. There's a it's the themes are very similar, the approach is a little bit different, but we're talking about, where humanity and how humanity's evolved, and in, Blade Runner's case, it's gone one way, and in Children of Men, unfortunately, it's gone and I don't want to give too much away, but it's gone a completely different way. And the struggles of that and how it changes society. And Children of Men just overall is like, I think, one of the best movies of the last 25 years. There's just moments in that are just incredible, and there's some there's a one shot in that that's just one of the best that's ever been done. Um, so definitely Children of Men. And then just for, these are again, I'd say, like loose ties, but sort of live in a world where if you enjoy the world building of Blade Runner, you'll enjoy stuff like this. Cloud Atlas is one that I think probably deserves a little more credit than it gets. It has its issues, but it's not. If you like the world of Blade Runner, I think you'll like Cloud Atlas. Um, and then just a sci-fi movie I really love, and I think if you love Blade Runner and you love sci-fi, this maybe doesn't have as many ties back, but Arrival was really, really well done. And that's a very loose tie. I'd say more just like, do you like great sci-fi movies with a great story? um Arrival is one to check out.
Villeneuve, right? The going
Yeah,
back, kind of, you're going back full circle with this the
yeah,
sequel. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Yeah.
yeah. He knows his. I mean, watch Dune too. Watch his new Dune movie. I mean, he knows his sci-fi. I don't know that there's anybody who's doing it better than he is. And then he also makes movies like Prisoners, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And I'm just like, the guy's a genius. So
I agree. Those are excellent. Those are really excellent. I love that connection you make with Children of Men. I love that. I think that is that again so on point. But again, that's another one that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of
yeah.
immediately. But now you mention it, yes, of course, exactly. And so, oh my goodness. And I must say too that there's something about, I don't know, you see it in Arrival, you see it in Dune, about how, I don't know how to explain it. It's just even the way that the air feels in these films. You could feel the air. You could feel the
Yeah.
way that it's just traveling through the space or something about it. There's something about how the atmosphere is captured in a
Yeah,
lot of
it's just
these
like
works.
the
Yeah.
I was gonna say the atmosphere of the movies, just like the scale of them is just all, yeah. He gets it.
Yeah, yeah. And then and much like Blade Runner too, but also like
Yeah,
Blade Runner and those other films, there's a lot that hinges on, say, the kind of the close connections that can be made or broken between characters,
yeah,
right? And so some of the, I mean, you mentioned Arrival, I mean, there's just huge stakes. And then it kind of comes down also to these really intimate moments between people or
right.
between characters, let's put it that way. So very much like, but I love that. Well done. I love that. This is great. This is really great. And again, um, just you mentioning this, why I think why didn't I think of that? That's really great. That's really great, Jeff. So I'm learning a lot here. And I'm excited for the next one. I'm thinking, which one should I go? So we have let's see, four left. So
Yeah.
let us go. Okay, let's go with this
Yep.
one. So I have another one which yeah, let's go with this one. We have mentioned this film before. You have mentioned this film before in the earlier part of the conversation, but let's go to this right now. This is one of many copies that I have of this. So this is the one that I pulled off of the shelf for purposes of today. You know it, I
Hmm.
know it. You know, I probably I I don't have to I don't have to ask how many copies you own of this, but in any event, yes, it's famous. We've mentioned before John Carpenter's The Thing.
Hmm.
So, my dear friend, again from the early 80s, one of the great eras of cinema. And so,
Yeah.
my dear friend, what would you recommend for anyone who is like myself and like many others who is into this great film, which is called The Thing?
Yeah, that's actually, so I mentioned I have some stuff signed by John Carpenter. That's the artwork. That's the poster from
Cool.
from that Blu-ray that I have signed by him and framed. I love that artwork.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too.
but yeah, The Thing. So um back to Stephen King, I pulled out The Mist, which is a really, really fun movie with a tough ending, which I think, if I remember correctly, is different from the book. I think they did it differently in the movie than they do in the book, but The Mist has some really cool. There's some really good creature work in there. It has a great cast. If you like The Walking Dead, I think like half of the Walking Dead cast is in The Mist. There's like three or four people from it that are in that. Um, but that one's a lot of fun. Another one that came out in 2017 is called Life, and it has Jake Gyllenhaal in it. And I don't think it got a lot of attention. It kind of just like flew under the radar, but that has a lot of strong tie-ins to The Thing, but also like Alien. And Alien's definitely one. If you like The Thing and you haven't seen Alien, or vice versa, I mean that's a no-brainer. But then the one that I always give to people when they ask, and this came out in 2016, I think it's called The Void. And that is the most The Void is the most John Carpenter movie I've seen that hasn't been directed by John Carpenter. It is like a total homage to him. It has the music, it has the amazing practical effects and great creature work, and tells an amazing story. So that one definitely people need to check out.
Oh, this is great. So I don't know this film, The Void.
It's a
So
good one.
is it?
If you
Oh
like
gosh.
if you like anything that John Carpenter's done, so this is like, it would be like John Carpenter the movie. It's like his it's everything. You can see how inspired it is. It's an 80s movie, but it came out in 2016.
You know exactly what to say to me, my friend, to get me hooked on a film. Oh, it's just like it's John Carpenter the movie. Oh yeah, okay. I'm there. All right, this is fantastic.
I mean,
Okay.
all the elements. It's like it's got cults, it's got crazy creatures, it's people are stuck inside a hospital, which is like a callback to Halloween 2. Like that's where it takes place. I mean,
Yeah.
everything in the music is all like the synth music, and it's John Carpenter the movie.
I'm sold. I'm sold. And again, you've done it again, my friend. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. So, um, you mentioned The Mist,
Hmm.
and I must say that yes, yes, I see I've seen The Mist. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I would never have thought about linking it with The Thing again until you mention it just now. And now that I think about it, of course, exactly. There's a sense of kind of claustrophobia. There's a
Yeah.
sense of who should we trust, that kind of
Right.
thing, and
Right.
paranoia, as well as the creature, the threat, the external threat, but there's also a type of internal threat in terms of who can you trust, and the tensions that are building. Oh,
Exactly.
that is a brilliant connection. I didn't think about that
And a
until you
sort of
mentioned it.
depressing ending too on both
Yeah.
of them. Neither one of these really end with a happy ending.
Yeah, and that's and but there's also a sense of a type of, how should I put it? It's one of those films, the way that they kind of, how should I put it? They have this way too of making you want to watch the film again, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In their own way. So, that's great. That's great. So, okay, so my mind is blown here. So, okay, so Void. And then I talked here. You mentioned The Mist, and then what was the second one? I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. You just talked about it, but was
Life.
Life. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
Life. So this is another one that I saw again. It was, I knew nothing about it, and I saw it, and this is Jake Gyllenhaal, and you said it was kind of under the radar.
Which surprised me because it has Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds in it, and it's like two of the biggest stars today, and it just sort of, yeah, it just, I mean, it did 100 million at the box office, but you don't hear people talk about it at all.
And it was a kind of scary film too,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's kind of like a sci-fi horror film.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and I was, again, I didn't know anything about it, and then just saw it. I don't know where exactly I saw it. It was, and I was very surprised,
Yeah.
very creepy in places. So, again, well done. I like that connection. Life. Does that have that's on a Blu-ray too, right?
Oh yeah, I think it has a 4K disc.
Does it? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's so cool. So I don't have, I've seen it, but I don't have that. But oh, those are great connections. I love that. And then Void. So I'm sold on this film Void. You said it was around 2016. So
Yeah,
I
the
can check
the
it out.
Void. I think
The
there's a
Void.
movie.
Thank you.
I think there's a movie called Void. That's not it. It's The Void. But yeah, 2016. It's you'll see the difference when you look at them.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will take a look at for I'll check out The Void. So thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, okay, so now we are coming down to, I guess it's the final three here. So
And
let me pull up.
just real quick, I'm looking at my time.
Yeah,
I've got like 10 minutes
okay,
left before I've got to hop off.
no problem. All right, we'll do this really quickly then. So here we go. Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the
Dawn of the
Dead.
Dead.
So, all right, let's go for it here. So, what would you recommend for anyone who loves Dawn of the Dead, like me?
Well, Dawn of the Dead, you got to go with some Korean uh zombie movies. Train to Busan, of course, excellent, and then one that just came out, The Sadness, which is really good. Really good. No, not enough people have seen that yet, I think, for it to pick up steam. Excellent movie, The Sadness. I also picked Mayhem, which came out in 2017. There is sort of they're stuck in an office building with a virus, but it's a very similar sort of vibe and has a lot of great action and gore. And then if you do want to get a little campier and a little bit more fun with your zombies, I really like the movie. So Cooties is like one of the funnier movies if you like horror comedies, Cooties is a zombie outbreak in a school where the elementary school kids are the zombies and the teachers are the ones who are trying to survive while all the kids are going crazy and just completely turn into zombies. Very, very funny movie, and has a lot of, it's got that same element. You're in a school, you're in an office building, you're in a mall, like that sort of thing. And you've got to survive. So
Oh
that one's a lot of fun.
gosh, why I haven't heard of this one. Oh gosh, Cooties. Okay,
Cooties,
I
2014 it came out.
okay.
It has Elijah Wood, it has Rainn Wilson from The Office. Who else is in that movie? It's got a pretty decent cast. But yeah, it's fun. It's funny.
Oh, cool. All right, so I've got to check this out. Thank you. And Mayhem
Mayhem.
and the Sadness, right?
Yeah,
So, okay, so Train Busan. Yes, I know this. Very yes, I agree with it. That's a great choice. So,
excellent.
thank you. And oh, so I know you're pressed for time, so I apologize. So I'm sorry. I just want to do this. I don't know when I have the two Dawn of the Dead heads here.
Oh yeah.
I'm so
I
sorry about
love
that. So
that in your
yes,
set.
so yes, sorry about that. I couldn't resist. Now, two left, and I wanted to save these because I know these two are very special to you. So here we go. Here's the Laserdisc of Halloween. And
Mhm.
so, my dear friend, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I
Go
mean,
for it.
if we're talking Halloween, obviously we got the new Halloween movies, but I think the one that's the first Halloween 2018, the first in the new trilogy, is the one I'd recommend. The others hit or miss. You don't really need to watch them. You could if you wanted to, but if you like the original, the first in that trilogy is going to be the closest to that, and it's a lot of fun. Um, Also, the movie The Strangers, which one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I saw that in theaters as about a 14-year-old, I think. Very scary. You're dealing with home invasion. You're dealing with, killers without a cause, really. Just, that boogeyman type mentality. Why are you doing this? And they say, because you were home. There's no reason. We're just killers in masks. And that movie has some terrifying, terrifying moments. Very creepy, a lot of stuff in the shadows. Um, and then for like recent slashers that I've really liked, Hellfest is a pretty fun one that I think didn't get a lot of attention. It's not the greatest movie ever made, but it is fun to watch. It's a unique slasher movie. Um, and then personal favorite of mine that always reminds me of Halloween, just in the way it's kind of shot and put together is The Collector. I like The Collector quite a bit.
Oh, thank you so much for this. So, okay, I know you're pressed for time, so, but I will. So I will have to check out what is it, Hellfest.
Hellfest, yeah.
Hellfest. Okay, because my goodness. Again, oh man, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm getting so carried away here because you've gotten me I'm overjoyed. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, no,
And
Hellfest is it's if you just want a fun slasher movie, it's a it's a guy in a mask who's following a group of teens around a Halloween themed carnival.
okay, okay.
It's fun. I mean, don't expect high cinema, but it's fun.
I love these sorts of films. So
And it's Halloween night, the whole thing. It's on Halloween night. It's at this Halloween like attraction, like a carnival, haunted houses and stuff. That's where that's where it all takes place. So it's a lot of
okay.
fun.
Oh, fantastic. All right, I have to check that out. So Hellfest, Hell. And then all right, so again, in the interest of time, let's go straight to it. The
Jaws,
lenticular, so yes, it's moving. The jaw, the mouth is
my
moving.
favorite.
Yeah, here we go. So my
My
dear
favorite
friend,
movie.
the floor is yours. Go
Yeah,
for it.
so this is my favorite movie of all time. So it's very, very hard to pick movies that match up to this. Um, One that just came out though that I think has a lot of Jaws like elements is Nope. I was watching Jordan Peele's Nope, and I kept feeling like it was Jaws plus Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was very, very Spielberg-esque. And sure, we're dealing with, alien monster versus monster under the sea, but a lot of the same elements. The monster remains hidden for a lot of the movie. You don't get a great look at it until, sort of the end. and there's also just the narrative of it is like, you got these people in this small town and something's happening and they're trying to figure it out. And then they build this sort of small team. And it's like almost the end of Nope is like you've got Brody and Quint and Hooper, and it's like that's your team. And they set up this whole contraption for how we're gonna defeat, the monster. It just reminded me so much of Jaws. I thought it was a really nice tribute to like Spielberg movies, but Jaws in particular. So that one, highly, highly recommend. It's different than anything Jordan Peele's done before. Um, and then for more direct comparisons, I really like The Shallows. I thought that was a good take on the shark movie. I liked Crawl, which was another recent movie, but we're dealing with an alligator in a hurricane in Florida where the house sort of floods and there's alligators in the house. I love a good creature movie, and there's so many of these in the 80s and 70s and 80s too that copied Jaws that I love. But then the other one that's very scary is Open Water, where you're just sort of dealing with if you're afraid of the ocean and Jaws freaks you out, Open Water might actually scare you more than Jaws. At least in Jaws, they're on a boat. Open water, you're in the open water. You're just floating. That is a scary, scary movie if you're afraid of the ocean.
I I know this film Open Water and I know the premise, but I never had the opportunity to catch up with this. I know the premise that you're talking about, but
Yeah,
okay,
it's
okay.
it's scary.
Oh, real okay, so this is
And I
from
mean,
this
it's not like there's jumps. It's just that idea of you are stuck in the open ocean and you're just trying to survive and there is who knows what underneath you, and you can't see it. It's just terrifying.
I saw that I think there was a trailer. I saw it and it was I gotta see this film. I don't know why I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
Okay, you've given me the push, my dear friend. So oh, this is great. And again, right, better person to ask. Again, this is your favorite film, as you say.
Love
And
it.
so and you've given me these you've given me this push in this direction as well as these other recommendations, my dear friend.
Yeah.
So
But honestly,
uh
Nope is the closest movie I've ever seen that I was like, this is Jaws with an alien. This is really well done. The
that's
characters are
cool.
great. They have all these different unique characters and they give great performances and the story's really good. It's Jordan Peele did his own version of Jaws there, and it's really well done.
Yeah, I recently caught up with Nope as well. So yeah, that's well done. I love that description. Again, you make these ties again. I would never have thought of it until today. And then here you are. So you again you're teaching me something new. Which is again, I love this. Thank you so much. But again, I don't want to keep you because I know that you said that you were on a schedule here. So my dear friend, I want to thank you so much for this. Really, I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. I wish again I should have controlled my comments with a more time management sensibility. So I apologize for
No
that. I
problem.
get
Hey,
I
we can
get
always
carried
do it
away.
again, right?
Oh, I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
Jeff, this has
absolutely.
been so much fun for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, so it was a lot of fun for me too to even just go through the list and just kind of rack my mind for okay, what am I going to recommend and how am I going to make this connect and not sound like an idiot? So it was fun. It was
Y-
fun.
Are you kidding me? You made these connections. Again, I'm floored. I'm absolutely floored. And it's just exactly again, why didn't I think of that? Exactly. That's so brilliant. You're absolutely again, I learned a lot today and you gave me a lot of titles that I gotta go and check out and
Yeah,
purchase where possible. So Jeff, thank you so much again. Again, I know that
thank
you have
you.
to go. It's a kind of hard stop for you, but a final word again for anyone who's meeting you for the first time. Again, where can people find you? I know it's a big platform, and many people know you already. I know, but just in case, my dear friend, where can people find you? And
Yeah.
yeah, please, the floor is all yours here for the final moments.
Yeah, if you're on like I said, any platform, YouTube is where I post most of my content. I'm at Films at Home. You search that on YouTube, you can come find me. I think you said you're going to put a link down in the video too, so it'll be down there for you all. But if you go there, I'm also on Instagram, pretty active. Twitter, I'm pretty active. I try to stay active in all those communities, Facebook, even TikTok. So everywhere you can look, find me, Films at Home. I'll always happy to answer questions, or whether it's about equipment or discs or just movies. And I really enjoyed this, and I do want to say, like, plug for my channel that I'm going to do more stuff like this on my channel as well, so come check it out.
You've got to check out Jeff at Films at Home in whatever capacity, such as the YouTube channel and others. Again, all the links will be down below. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Press notification, comment, and comment. This is all. It helps so much. And
Yeah,
again, as
build
Jeff
a
says,
community.
he's open. He's so open to answering questions and like. And as you can see,
Absolutely.
what a very friendly, nice guy he is. I had
Thank-
such fun, Jeff. Thank you so much
yeah,
for
thank you.
your energy and enthusiasm, and for for keeping the light, holding that up for the
Yeah,
rest of us. It really is. You're doing great work. Keep it up. It's
absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
so much.
same to you. I love your channel, so definitely will be I'm excited that our video is going to drop on my channel today, and I'm sure we'll send some people your way too. But this is a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to do it again.
Fantastic, Jeff. Thank you so much, and take care. And we'll talk again very soon.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.